Good evening. Welcome to Q&A live at the Festival of Dangerous Ideas. I'm Tony Jones, and answering your questions tonight, experimental psychologist Simon Leyen, who promotes the joy of science and sin. Chinese-American author and Obama advisor Jian Yingzha. British journalist Shiv Malik, who's predicting a generational war between the young and the old. Comedy writer and author Jane Bussman, who wants the poverty industry to get out of Africa. And science writer Jesse Bering, who highlights the inner animal of human behaviour. Please welcome our panel. Right, thank you very much. Q&A is live from the Sydney Opera House tonight. It is simulcast on News 24 and News Radio, so go to our website if you want to send a question or join the Twitter conversation using the hashtag on your screen, just like the people who've joined the live Twitter event, the Opera House Boardwalk Under the Stars. As viewers of last week's Fody Q&A will know, this is a program for free thought, dangerous ideas and strong language. So if any of those may offend, this is your chance to turn off. Please don't do that. Anyway, let's leave that for a minute. Let's move along. Our next question comes from Oliver Damian.
So moving on, let's say humans don't have free will and we simply evolve to pass on our genes to the next generation. So how is it then possible for a whole generation of baby boomers to commit the greatest evolutionary sin of threatening the survival of their children by creating a jilted, bankrupt next generation?
Shiv Malik, this is your area.
Yeah, it is.
You've written an entire book on it.
So that's a really good point. I haven't actually thought about it. Me and my co-author, Ad Haq, haven't thought about it from a biological, evolutionary basis. But perhaps we should. That would be the next book or something. What's quite clear, I think, is that from an economic and political point of view, we've had a generation who, in a sense, I don't think specifically deliberately, because they do love their children, that's sort of patently clear. What they have done, though, is they've been selfish as a generation. They haven't done this, which is just, they haven't made those sacrifices and investments that are quite necessary to make sure that the next generation of young adults can do those sorts of things, very basic things like have a home, have a stable home, start a career, and get into the workplace. Right? Those things, and maybe even start saving for a pension of their own rather than paying the next generation's pension. Those are very basic things, and I think societies around the world, it's amazing. Actually, we were talking before, and this is happening even in China. So, in Britain, we call this kind of living off the bank of mum and dad, where you have loads of young adults under 30. I think it's about a third of young adults in Britain now who are under 30 are living with their parents. In Australia, your figures are going up for this as well. Over the last 20 years, it's gone up 4 or 5%. To about 23% now of young adults are now living with their parents. You probably all know this. You're probably sitting next to them on the couch going, yes, you're still at home. Why? You're like 28 now. So, and it's happening in China too. It's Kan Lao Tzu, you call them, the tribe that chews on the old. I mean, they have the same words, and it's amazing. This is going on around the world.
Yeah.
You're saying they should be chewing on the old because the old didn't give them enough to eat.
Yeah,
no,
well,
metaphorically speaking.
I passed that term on to Shiv the other day, but I think it's not for the same reason, though. It's not because the Chinese parents are what you call the 60th generation here in England, or it's a me generation. They didn't think of their children. It's quite the opposite. In fact, both the parents and the grandparents have thought about their children. Even the grandparents were like these. Now they're retired after working for the state in the pre-economic reform era at a pathetically low salary. So they actually had tiny little savings, and they were able to buy their house only, at a subsidized rate. But still, with whatever they saved up, they were trying to help their children to get now in this more, sort of high housing price era, to help them. This has something to do, of course, also with the one-child policy, because, there's only this one child that the whole family, not only the parents, but the grandparents are all invested in this child's future. So, and then if he hits or her hits a bad luck, everybody chips in. So it's actually not because the parents are selfish.
We've got another question on this subject. I'm going to bring it in, then everyone can comment on it. But it's a similar subject, and it's from Suzanne Kirley.
Yeah, Shiv, you're talking about this cult of individualism for the baby boomers, but I wonder if you've thought about the cult of instant gratification, where the younger generation seem to want the higher jobs at the beginning of their career, the house, all the trimmings really early. And if so, is that the baby boomers' fault because we told them that life is easy, you can have anything you want? So is that...
It's a great question, actually. It kind of gets to the heart of this. And so what's happening in Australia is, that is about 22 billion is being handed from boomers to their kids. So clearly, in a sense, that there's that family love. And what we fail to do, in a sense, is have those broader institutions to be able to build those homes and actually, create decent economies, in a sense. I mean, this doesn't always apply to Australia, but, you have bits of it here starting.
Hang on, Shiv, you're talking about a war between generations. You seem to be backing away from your headline.
No, there's a possible... clearly there's a conflict, in a sense, between interests. It needn't be that way, because actually there should be an intergenerational contract, which is always there. And that's what's broken down, in a sense...
Why? Never trust a hippie.
Never trust a hippie. Well, yeah, it goes back. So it does go back to the... in a sense, the counterculture, which became rapidly, as my co-author puts it, the over-the-counter culture. And it rapidly became this sort of marketized economy in which we didn't make those sacrifices. So in Britain especially, with housing and all those other things, so you've got to the point where young adults now, the job situation's so bad, young adults are interning for not just weeks, for free, unpaid, not just for weeks or months, upwards of a year. Unpaid. And this is how they start their life. And that means that, of course, that only the people with the rich parents do well, because only they're able to sort of work for free for all that period of time to get up a leg up in life.
It's a giant contract from beginning to end. It's like, I seriously believe this whole baby boomer generation, they rigged it so they could buy a nice house in the middle of town for £12,000 in 1979 or 1969. Bang, they rigged it so in the mid-90s they could sell it for 12 million or whatever it is, and push all the young people out of the inner cities. It's almost impossible to live in the centre of town now unless you've already got property to sell. It's like the main thing is they need to find some way to attack the property prices, or the cities will be bereft of anyone interesting.
Jesse, how does this function in the States?
The war between the young and old?
Yeah, any such thing?
I suppose it's the same thing. I mean, we've got these problems with people living in their basements.
Property prices, which probably makes it a little different.
Yeah, so I think it's similar. It's probably not demonstrably different than in the UK and Australia.
You've got the thing at universities, obviously, where people who, the older professors now have tenure, and of course, they don't get any of that status out.
Yeah,
and then of course the younger generation who come along and they're, no, we can't give them tenure, we can't afford it now. So, if you're there first, done.
I mean, I have noticed.
Paid for, final salary, all that lot.
Well, I have noticed. Find out from Simon, are there any some ancient professors you want to knock off to climb the ladder of academic success?
Yeah, there are a couple. Or remain nameless.
Yes, we're probably better. The one-child policy does make a huge difference in China, but you also live in the States. Any reflection on that?
Yeah, in Europe there's this rent control phenomenon. So whoever got there first at rent control, got a good bargain, and they're just sitting on this house that doubled, tripled, 5 times, But then for the younger people who come into New York to work, of course.
I just wanted to add, I do think that there are an increasing number of young people that are in the U.S. that are actually going to graduate school, that are viewing this as sort of an extended adolescence with funding. It gives them extra time.
Perhaps to go back to Suzanne's question precisely about high expectations, the classic program in all of this, talking about rent control, is Friends. The comic series, and the whole premise of it, it's utterly fantastic, right? They live in this wonderful Manhattan apartment, etc., and how could they possibly do it? They're in and out of jobs, they're half unemployed all the time.
Monica was a prostitute.
Yeah, right. No, in fact, it's worse than that.
What?
In fact, they live in a rent-controlled flat. That's how they managed to do it.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, Monica's sort of aunt, I think, or is a grandmother who died. They move in rapidly, and that's how they're able to do it. So in a sense, The way in which the boomers got ahead, but by their parents making those sacrifices, setting up those systems, things like rent control, building more houses,
okay,
they get ahead.
Got a gentleman with his hand up in the front row there, or hang on, we'll just get a stand up. We'll get a microphone to you. Yes, go ahead.
Don't you think that some of this is to do with the longevity? You know, where our societies are living a lot longer, it's breeding a lot of uncertainty. So the baby boomers are holding on to more wealth because they don't know how long they're going to have to last for.
Oh yes, this is an interesting argument. Not that we should kill off baby boomers, but but which generation will actually inherit? Because it may be that your generation, which is complaining and wanting to go to war, will be superseded by the next generation who inherit from their grandparents.
Right. One thing about Australia is that you're blessed with a really interesting demographic. You're a lot younger country. I mean, literally, your average age is about 35. In Britain, it's 45, so you can already see the differences there. But you are going to have the same ageing issues as everywhere else. Perhaps you want to now, at this point, give a round of applause to people in the past who actually sorted out, you know, your superannuation with your pensions, the Labour government, and Peter Costello as well, who brought in the Charter of Budget Honesty Act in 1998. These things have helped set you up for quite a good fiscal future. When it comes to the situation of inheritance precisely, the thing is always this. If you don't inherit in time, and what's the time limit on this? It's when you get to the biological limit. If you want young adults to have children and set up families and do all those things, then they've got to have the resources to do that before you get to about 40, maximum sort of 45, right? Because that's just your cutoff limit for your biological clock. And that's a real issue, and it's an issue across the world. And it's a big issue in Britain, Japan, talking about China as well, etc., etc.
All right, before we go to war, we'll have the negotiation with the elderly, and we'll see what happens. But that's all we have time for tonight. Please thank our panel: Simon Layham, Jianying Jha, Shiv Malik, Jane Bussman, and Jessie Baring. Please give them a round of applause. And hold on, our very special thanks to the Festival of Dangerous Ideas and this wonderful audience inside and outside the Sydney Opera House. Please give yourselves, you brave ones outside, a huge round of applause as well. Thank you. Okay, next week Q&A will return to the political arena with former Finance Minister Lindsay Tanner, whose new book, Politics with Purpose, turned the spotlight on the workings of the Rudd government. The Minister for Employment and Participation and Early Education, Kate Ellis, opposition strategist and education spokesman Christopher Pyne, and American actor and playwright Nilaja Sun, who's taught drama at some of America's toughest schools. Until next week, good night.